Thank you for letting us postpone our last meeting. Just before we get started, is it okay if we go without masks, or would you prefer we wear them?
Without masks is fine.
Without is fine.
If any members of the public walk in, we'll stop the meeting and ask them if they have a preference. So last time we left, we had a proposal from the police union on pay, and the city had responded on a cost to sick leave payout changes. The city does have a few new items to present today. Is it okay if I start with those?
Yes.
I wasn't sure how many would be at the table today, so you're going to have some extras. This is city management proposal number 2. It's a change to the sick leave accruals. They have them, Akila. It's moving from 3 decimal rounding to 2 decimal rounding. We rounded everything above a 0 up, so there is no decrease in benefit for the employees. There would be a fractional increase. This is just for timekeeping to be easier, so we're not dealing with thousandth of hour calculations.
Sounds great.
I know you guys have probably all experienced that. Management proposal 3 is the change to vacation. Same rounding principles apply. So both of those have no negative impact to employees. It is a very, very small increase in a benefit, mostly to deal with timekeeping within the system.
Oh, sorry, I didn't look up.
This is management proposal number 4. It's a change to the clothing allowance section, adding a boot allowance for the training and community services coordinator. Because positions for civilians are spelled out individually and this is a new position, we would like to address it and add it to get the allowance.
Okay.
That is held by 1 employee, so there's only a $200 cost. I like it. Proposals go this fast.
Getting your steps in too.
There's not many yet, about what, 30? This is management proposal number 5. This is a change to the enhanced EAP language. It moves it for the mandatory visit will be regular time to either scheduled on shift or 1 hour paid overtime for the employee. Make that benefit a little bit more comprehensive of the time the employees are spending. Any questions on any of those?
Nope.
Do you have anything you would like to discuss before we get into pay?
No. Or did you want to talk about the?
Yeah, let's just do that, just so we can just say.
We're not.
So I tried to pull my inner Heather
Oh boy.
and do some calculations too about our sick leave proposal.
Okay.
And it's not anything difficult. I printed out some copies. I guessed on the people too.
I can pass them down.
I think when we last left off on that, we were just, it was just kind of put to the side for a little while until we can re-talk about this. So, I mean, same thing as just some of the homework that I did before our next meeting. In your other calculation that you provided, you said that you did all the employees and excluded the lieutenants and above. I'm assuming that was for a reason. and I just did it based on kind of what we were looking at as far as the retaining of employees. And so I redid the calculation and I included lieutenants and above. And the reason why I did that is because a lot of them are the ones that are actually eligible to retire. So versus myself, I'm not eligible to retire. So I didn't include that. And I don't have access to all the numbers like HR does, so you can correct my calculations if they are way off. Mine are truthfully through word of mouth and asking people to provide me their pay and how much they had sick time. And so this chart that I did was the first week of after the first pay period of May. So whatever anybody had, for sick time and what they are currently getting paid and who was eligible to retire. There was 13 people. They're eligible to retire within the next 2 years. So that's one of the things that we were working on as a union is maybe try to have a 2-year contract, right? So we don't have to do this all the time because it's heart-wrenching. And so
It's gut-wrenching.
yeah, well, it's hard
both.
too. It's both. And so the idea was I tried to find everybody that was eligible to retire within the 2 years. 6 of them are actually, I guess would be members of the union, so sergeant and below.
Okay.
7 are not, but they are eligible to retire. After doing the calculation, our totals are different. I know statistics are that way, right? Statistics are that way, but our totals for the people that, if all of these people were to retire within the 2 years, which is, not likely, but if that was to happen, that total of what we presented would be $321,000 $152.36. So we were about $150,000 less than what you calculated, and that would be if every single person eligible to retire within the 2 years retired. Now, obviously, both of our numbers will be shifted because it's an accrual thing, and I don't have access to that, and I really wish I was an Excel guru and I could calculate what that would be if everybody retired within 2 years. So this is just based on, obviously the numbers will both be higher, right? Your numbers would go up, plus mine would go up, but I think proportionally it would be pretty similar. We are bigger on the payout. The biggest payout, our largest payout calculated was $51,000, but seeing that, I mean, to me, that's an amazing accomplishment for somebody to not ever call in sick, right? To have that much amount of time saved up, they don't call in sick, which means they're providing good effort. And I think that is something that would do benefits for somebody like myself who's not eligible to retire. I don't call in sick often unless my daughter breaks her arm, which that just recently happened. But it's a motivation to hold on to that so that I can, be able to pay for insurance. Your smallest payout was $0. Ours was $4,000. Again, it was just who was eligible to retire, and so that's where the difference was there. And then our average payout is obviously higher, but we included everybody that was able to retire. I believe there's one captain that could retire in 2 years. And then a couple of lieutenants, and the rest were sergeants. So with that being said, I just think that I know we'll continue to talk about this later, but if you could just, I don't know if this is a good way to maybe look at it and evaluate it as the idea of us trying to encourage people to stay and then say like, if you bank your hours and you're at work and you're not calling in sick, there is a reward at the end of the tunnel, and it isn't as monetarily as expensive as I think that we would think, because a lot of our coworkers, although they're eligible to retire, they stay, right? And sometimes I don't think that the city would take a huge lump of this hit in one go. So that's kind of the response to the calculation. And I just wrote down there a couple things to explain the parentheses. In color, it's way sweet because I copied your chart, so it's just like yours. So anyway, it should work out. As far as, I don't think it would hurt as bad, but obviously that discussion could come later if need be.
So when we do cost calculations, we do it as a whole liability. Additionally, brass or management, so lieutenants and above, is excluded because the union does not negotiate on their behalf.
Right.
So what the union gets doesn't necessarily transfer over to management.
Right.
So that is the reason why we kept management out. Also because we didn't want to say that that was a union-associated cost.
Right.
Because we just try to keep to your bargaining levels.
Right, and I guess I know that the rules, I know that on paper that's what it looks like, but I assume, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that management, when they do retire, they get what is currently set up right now, the 20, 30, 40, right?
They get to find what's in the handbook.
Yeah, and so I just assume that if that was to be that way and it stayed the same and everybody was the same, that's why I calculated everybody. And to be honest with you, if I did it, then it would look super like I cheated because it would be only six people on there total that is actually underneath our union umbrella, which is not fair for us to claim that, yeah, look, you only got to pay, $40,000 when truthfully, if Major McCoy retires, right, you got to pay him or whatever, So
Don't give him ideas.
Those kinds of things. That's why I did it that way. So. Cool. Not at this point.
All right. Do you guys want to stop and take a break after this long and arduous meeting we've had to talk about the proposals on the table, or do you just want me to jump back in?
You can jump back in.
All right. So I'm not going to hand stuff out yet. I want to walk through it, and then I'll hand it out.
Sounds great.
So I can get you to focus on my screen. All right, so the city has developed a counter offer to your verbal proposal given at the first meeting, which was the new pay chart or the 2-year contract with 6% for year 1 and then either 6% for year 2. I don't remember the exact verbiage, but we had 2 verbal offers on the table around the same issue. So this is the city's counter offer. It is a multi-part proposal that must be taken as a whole. So that means every section of the proposal is incumbent on it being a tentative agreement. So impacted sections of the CBA under this new pay chart that we're proposing are Article 7 compensation, field training, education incentives, sworn officer position classification, pay grade changes and charts, sworn step increase, and then Article 10 clothing allowance. I know that's a lot of pieces on one thing. So the first part of the offer is this would be a 2-year contract. For fiscal year 22, it'd be a new sworn officer pay grade chart to be adopted. Year 2, which would be fiscal year 23, would have a chart adjustment based off of the CPI for 21 and 22 combined with a 3% total max. Finance would determine what our CPI metrics are or when we pull them. It's the money guy, so he can tell you what measurements we have. I didn't have that to put right in here. So we also would like a multi-year contract. The first part of the proposal deals with field training. I designated out CTO training from FTO. We've already TA'd on the $40, so I went ahead and built this into the language. Communication training offers would continue to get the $40 ad pay. Sworn officers, however, we would eliminate the ad pay and we would build a line in the pay grade that was an extra $4 an hour. So you guys work 10-hour shifts, the $40 still transfers over. Just as a payroll note, because I know you guys have a lot of payroll processing on your side with so many employees. As an employee, you would have 2 positions in time clock, your regular rank and then your rank plus trainer. You would just pick the select one to have the right rate of pay. The reason behind this is by eliminating an ad pay and rolling training into your base, we affect your long-term PERSI wages. You also would then become overtime eligible on that $4 an hour, whereas it's not overtime eligible as an ad pay. There is no loss of income for the employee, it's simply an adjustment on payment method. A little bit of adjustment on time entry, and then there is an adjustment on the payroll processing side. Part 2 is the annual education bonus. There's a couple changes we made here. First, we split it out between civilians and sworn officers, and we moved from a lump sum to a per paycheck contribution. I took 125 and divided it by 26 and made sure you stayed whole. So at $481 per pay period, it comes out to like $125.24. So each of these are broken down. This language is at the bottom of the section. I just moved it up here. It also means that civilians are eligible for the pay at the start of a fiscal year, no mid-year changes. That's for budgeting and processing ease. Part 2 of this is for sworn officers, and this is a whole rewrite, so I didn't yellow line it. For fiscal year 21, participants in the program would be slotted into their categories, and there would be no pay decrease. So you would be guaranteed to receive the incentive you do now, but it would be part of your base pay. Additionally, there would be no new participants for sworn officers starting in fiscal year 22. So where you sit at the end of fiscal year 21 is where you would stay. The 2-year vocational and associate's degree comes out to $481 per pay period. That would remain on the employee's account until they either retire, or if they were to get a higher degree of education, then they would be placed into the degree line. Bachelor's degree, the BA or BS lump sum have been built in as part of base wage, so I took the $250 divided by 2080, it comes out to 12 cents an hour. You have a separate pay grade that rolls that into your base. And then a master's degree, we took the normal amount, we took away the $250, that comes out to $385 per pay period that they would receive. They would also receive the pay grade line that is for a degree. Part 3 is the change to sworn officer classification definitions. As you can see, we've eliminated the master levels. This new pay scale does eliminate the master levels of patrol, corporal, and sergeant. It, however, does not impact an employee's pay. The reason for the change is a more standardized rank structure and to reduce manual adjustments to employees' steps and grades. Anytime humans touch the system, there's a greater chance of error. Part 4, pay grade table and officer placement. So all I added was, the step is annually at the start of a fiscal year. The offer note is just to explain how placement on the new chart occurred. Officers who were to step 1 in fiscal year 21 obviously got moved to a 2. Officers who were above a step 2 were placed in the step to ensure there was no loss of income when we rolled in the bachelor's degree and the clothing allowance to base. So you will at least take home what you were anticipating to make in 22 on the new table. Everyone, I think except for 2 people, will be making more. Those 2 will be making exact. Officers who had a longevity replacement ad pay were moved to a step to eliminate that ad pay. So for the first time since we gave up longevity, those 4 officers would be receiving a raise for fiscal year 22. And then officers who were placed on your 22 movement. It becomes an issue for the master ranks. If you had everything for the master rank, but you were still waiting on like a certification, you can't step there. We've built it like they got the step, but they will be placed only if they achieve that criteria within this fiscal year. Part 5, effective fiscal year 22, automatic rank advancements, that's 3rd to 2nd and 2nd to 1st, will be made on the anniversary date, just as we currently do. However, competitive promotions, 1st class to corporal and corporal to sergeant, will result in a 6-month introductory period with step movements only occurring on fiscal year. Part 6, with placement on this new scale, it does eliminate the replacement longevity for those 4 employees who have it left. So this whole section could be struck from the CBA because it's no longer valid ad pay. Clothing allowance, I split it out between civilian and sworn. Civilian, I moved to $21.74 per paycheck. I also actually included the payment for a half-time civilian personnel. Before it just said half of the amount. And then section 3, sworn clothing allowances. The clothing allowance for sworn was eliminated and rolled into base. Boot allowance is just update of the number and showing you where I removed the half-time language. My management proposal today that I handed over added the 1 position to the boot allowance. That would be incorporated in if you agreed on that. This is the new chart. So it's much bigger than what we see now. As you can see, we had to renumber it, so you're now L's. Third class, second class, first class are normal. And then you see we now have a first class trainer, a first class bachelor's degree, and a first class bachelor's degree plus trainer. So as an example, if you're a first class officer who has a degree, you would be slotted at an L5. In the time clock system and in payroll, you would also have an L6. So days that you were working as an FTO, you would select that item in time clock, so you got the $4 additional an hour on your base. Corporals and detectives are separated because of the difference in clothing allowance. It's also easier for us to track what division people are in if we can tell right away. We kept the amounts whole, so corporals 27 cents an hour for clothing, whereas detectives it's 51 cents an hour. On the chart, anyone assigned to detectives was given the detective allowance, even narcs. It's too hard to try to differentiate between the two. If they're in the division, they get the pay. So I know this is very different than what we're used to seeing. As you'll notice, the sergeant in detectives does not have an FTO. That's the only one that doesn't have the field training built into the rank. So the table build itself, so your first class officer, I did extend out to 10 steps. I've been listening. I know we're worried about people not being able to have continued earnings for the first decade of their career. This chart ensures that. I've also front-loaded the chart. What that means is I pushed more of the money to the front, so the raises are seen earlier. It still has the impact on the higher level positions. It just has more of an impact for your lower level people that we're trying to get to promote through the ranks or move through steps. First class officer, so third to second is still 5%. From second to first, I move that percentage between ranks to 7. From first to corporal is 5% of step 3, and from corporal to sergeant, it's 4.25% from step 5. And then these are the percentages between steps based on rank. I know this is a lot of material. So this is what the pay grade chart itself looks like. I know that's really little to read. I have a nice big printed copy for you with annual salaries on paper. So your first class is where we've really tried to focus our retention efforts, because I know we're losing officers in this area especially. As you can see, there'd be automatic advancements for the first 12 years of employment. If they choose to promote, we're then back at 6 steps. So this is probably a little hard to read, but this is increases by grade and step. The white is what the proposal is, the blue is current, and the orange is the difference. So by adding in clothing allowance to your third class officer, their increase is $565, which is why there shows an adjustment. You go all the way down, as you can see, first class officer at step 1, instead of the $52,000 they're making this year, they'd make $53,565, which is an increase of $1,565, all the way up through the ranks. This is a comparison of our third class officers. So this is us, and then this is Idaho Falls, Caldwell, Coeur d'Alene, Twin, and Chubbuck's current rates. So as you can see, hourly and annual, where we compare to those different groups. I'll give you this in writing so you guys can sit and talk about it. I just wanted to include it so that you had it handy without having to flip back and forth. I've done this for third, second, first, and then corporal and sergeant. As you can see, the sergeants are not receiving the raise that the lower ranks are because they are already competitively paid.
Is that, those rankings, was that with the proposal or that's where we're at now?
That is the proposal.
Okay.
Yep. So I'm going to hand it out on paper because I know you're going to have a lot of things you need to process, so we'll go into caucus. I can pull up the chart and answer questions directly now, or we can do that when you get back, whichever you prefer. It's a lot to go through now.
Let's get the forms now, and then we can caucus, and then we can come back with the questions we have.
So the PowerPoint is on the little sheets, and the chart that you can see is on the bigger. If you need me to print it bigger, I can.
What room do we have?
I brought my glasses.
You both get magnifying
I
glass?
can see.
What room are they in?
These old guys.
What room are we in?
Let me check which conference room we're in. HR director should pull up their email on shared screens.
Yeah, you never know what we have up there.
Thanks.
You're gonna be in Paradise.
Okay. Mouse bit here when you get there.
So, just note that.
We're all gonna make a run for it.
I could use a good.
Welcome back, everybody, after our caucus. It is 3:20 in the afternoon.
Come you big drink. It's hot in here. Okay, regarding all of your proposals, the little ones, I think we're good with all those. No language changes in that.
So just for clarification, Article 12, Article 13, Article 10, 15. I thought there was one more. Nope, that was it. Was the 4, correct?
Yeah, that's what. Did you have one more, Heather?
I do. Currently, there's a conflict between the CBA and the PAR. We actually prefer the language in the PAR. Currently, the CBA says that it takes 3 years as a corporal detective to move to a sergeant, and the PAR says 2. If you're okay with it, we would prefer to move to 2 years defined in the CBA.
Yep, we're good with that too.
So do we want a TA on the cities 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6? That's the 4 I handed over this morning and this one.
You
Yes.
said 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6.
Yep, that's everything I handed out besides the giant packet today. You know, that light bedtime reading I handed over.
Do you want me to sign these and?
I have a copy so you can keep one. So it looks like that leaves 2 things on the table, the sick leave payout percentage change and then the city's counter to your pay scale.
Yes. So, did the city have anything they wanted to counter propose on the sick leave payout?
Not at this time. This kind of is remaining on the table right now.
Okay. Regarding the city's counteroffer to our offer, there's a lot of good stuff in it that we like. We like that the first-class officers can go out to 10 steps and a multi-year contract. It works out good for our patrolmen and keeping them for long term and more incentive for them to stay. It does, however, create some compression issues that we're concerned about, and we don't want to develop a program that negates people or takes away an incentive to promote and move up the chain. We feel that there's not enough gap as you're moving down into the sergeant ranks, and then which would filter on, but we won't discuss where that goes, into the administration levels. So really our big thing with that is the compression issue. The FTO stuff is a good positive. We like how the hourly goes in there. However, out of 2,080 hours of work year that you'd have, there's just taking a rough estimate. This year's an anomaly with as many trainees, so we're in a constant training cycle. But we don't want to be in a constant training cycle. The idea is to keep people so we're not having to keep training people over and over and over again. And if we get to that goal where we're keeping people, then that FTO incentive it's good, but it's going to be diminished quite a bit. So maybe any given officer might only get 4 weeks a year out of that, if all would go well. Maybe 6. But that being said, we'd like to present a counter offer or another proposal
Okay.
for a pay scale.
It's fairly similar, just a few changes. And I am tasked with doing it. It's big pieces of paper. It took me forever to figure out how to turn these.
Just so long as they're small numbers.
That's why we have a big piece of paper, so you can
Yeah.
see the numbers.
Okay.
Do you have one more? She needs one of everything that's passed back and
Oh,
forth,
okay.
just for the official record.
This was built including the administration, but we blacked out the
Yeah,
administration levels
sorry.
for this.
It's hard for me to separate everybody. Just- So how do I make sure that this is shown?
We need to get the HDMI connected.
Don't steal that thing or Ken will blame me.
I don't even know what this thing is.
Yeah. Just take the. There you go. Yeah, just turn it upside down. There we go. Which way? That way.
That's not in focus.
Unless they go ahead and follow along on here.
I mean, we all have a piece of paper. Do you really need me to do it on the computer? Or is that just for the public to watch?
You can pop it up there for the public and just leave it as a view.
Okay. Sorry, public.
Maybe expand it if you can, just like a couple of ticks down on the bottom right-hand side.
Were you over here?
No, all the way down on the bottom. Yeah, there you go. There you go. At least they
At least
can
it's
see
one.
something.
Sorry.
They could see something. Yeah.
This is why you see what kind of computer I use. This stuff. I'm just kidding. So, kind of what President Wadsworth talked about was the idea that I think that the last proposal that you guys provided did a good job of trying to help retain our current officers. A concern that our body has would be the idea of taking away stuff that we've already worked for, like the incentives and stuff. Even though we didn't really take them away, we put them in the hourly rate, which does bode well for maybe Percy or overtime. But if I did nothing different, I guess that's the part where it makes it hard for us to, as a representative of our group, to say okay to it. In this scale, we did quite similar to what you've completed, and we actually left the third class patrolman the same as far as the 2268. As one of our goals that I think we all talked about, just as a city and as an entity, that we do not want to do this every year. And so one of the goals of discussing a two-year deal, this has that included. And so just a brief hope, how we started off with 6%. We've backed off with some adjustment to the first year being a 3% increase, but we are asking for the range expansion. And I guess the contrary to yours that you provided is that it does not include, rolling in what we've already earned, I guess, and it continues all the way down to the sergeant. It does maintain the names. I don't know how crucial that is for the city, but it does maintain the names of, master sergeant and corporal. And the idea was us trying not to make it very difficult for the adjustment. Our goal is just to increase the range for the police. Our salary range for sworn officers is about 10%. There is a position that is a sworn officer. We do not represent them, but they are only at a 5% range of how they start from start to finish. So we've tried to increase that so that it will encourage people to stay, move forward, and be rewarded for their loyalty. In this setup, what we would ask is that a first-class patrolman that is topped out, no matter where they are. On here it says year 2, 9, and the max would be 10 years, and you wouldn't change at that point. A person that is maybe 11-year master patrolman or 12-year master patrolman, they would not be dropped in at the max rate. They would be dropped in at year 4. I think that would be their closest comparable step. And so they'd be dropped in at year 4, and then at that rate it would move forward. As you see at the year 2, we've asked, we've I guess split up the 6%, and so we've asked for a 3% increase on year 1, and then the next year we'd ask for 3% plus CPI, whatever that may be, whatever that is calculated. And again, asking for the range. So long story short is that we would maintain basically what we have as far as our what we've just signed, those benefits, but we would like for the range to be spread out through the sergeant, master sergeant rank, as well as just solidifying that we will maintain the increases, and we tried to do it in a way that we don't feel it would, or that we hope doesn't harm the city in a way that they're able to plan for us plan for this to happen with the two-year agreement, so. And sorry about the black square. I know it doesn't look aesthetically pleasing, but like I said, when you make them, you do it, and it's like, no, you can't have people that are above. So I just that was the quickest way for me to do it in the last hour without messing up equations.
So this lists years, what does that mean?
So the year would be as you started. So as you were in that position, it would be the year that you were in. So as you started, you'd be year 1, year 2, year 3. Now we know that currently we have officers that are 12-year first class patrolmen, right? You would put them to what we would consider the closest, most fair would be year 4 is where you would drop them in, and they would start there. So then the next following year their next following year of service, of their anniversary of service, then they would move into that year 5, year 6.
So between your year 1 and your year 2, is there a step movement also on top of the 3% and CPI increase?
Where are you looking? I'm sorry.
So year 1's on the top right, correct?
Yes.
And year 2's on the bottom? So if I place a patrol officer in year 1 as step 4, does the next year, do they move to step 5 in addition to the 3% plus CPI?
So are you saying from 3rd to 2nd class? That's how it just goes straight up the
No, like a first class officer that's at a step 4.
So then
in
that
year
first
1.
class officer would then go to year 5 would be 2842.
And get a 3% and CPI on top of that?
No, this was a calculation is the 3% already. It would year one is a 3% thing, and then the year 3 was just 3%, another 3% on top of that. But then it would be I don't know what the CPI is, so it would be what you would have to add CPI to that. Yes, if that's what you're asking.
But you added 3%?
We added 3%.
As an assumption on this?
Yeah, just at 0 CPI on that one.
So for year 1, it says 3% plus range expansion.
Right.
But your entry-level officer is at the same rate of pay, so where did you apply the 3%?
It wasn't until after into the master patrol and first class corporal.
So the first class / master patrol, is the percentage between second class and first class changing? Did you include that by 3% from 5 to 8?
No.
Or did you leave that how did we leave that?
We just left that as is. The 3%, because I think the original one is 2381. So yeah, I guess there was a 3% there because that went to the 24.52. That we're currently at 2381 on second class.
So does that mean?
But we left third class alone. We didn't touch that.
So from 3rd to 2nd, we increased the percentage to 8% instead of 5?
Yes.
And that will maintain at that level?
Yes.
So it's not a true 3% to the table, it's 3% difference between 3rd and 2nd?
We left, yeah, I apologize. We left the third class alone. The third class will see that they're 3% in that second year, but in the first year we did not do that.
So in year 2, we added 3% to the entry, you added 3% to the hiring range?
Yep.
And then that trickled up?
Yes.
So that's 6% to the rest of the table over the 2 years?
Right.
So if I were to look at your table, and I can't see it from here,
Do you have a copy? Yeah.
and yeah, I do, but I'm trying to get to the formulas that are behind.
Oh.
So if you hover over, or if you click on, for instance, third class officer, $22.68.
I think I have it right here.
Where I was heading with this is,
sorry.
are your calculations
In there? And
embedded in here,
I
or
believe
did
so,
you
yeah.
calculate somewhere else and then put it onto the spreadsheet, key it into the spreadsheet? I was just trying to figure out how I could verify your calculations. other than doing the math. So,
Yeah.
and I'm not trying to test you, I'm just trying
It's
to.
okay. I'm not a cheater, so I'm not worried about it. So these are all calculated separately. I don't have the equations embedded in there.
Okay.
But I could get that.
Okay.
I can get that though. That's not hard.
After reviewing your proposal and then this one that we've just presented, they're a lot similar, other than corporal and sergeant stopped at
And
step
incentives.
6. So that just flows that out. Kind of going through the numbers, they're pretty similar until then.
So the year 1 to year 2 for someone who's just moving along steps within their rank, they'll see 3% plus CPI plus a step movement. What is your percentages between steps?
I think it's the. All we did was create the range from we started with the range between from the beginning, from the minimum to the end to equal the 25%. That was our goal. So from when I started to by the time if I stayed in that same position for 10 years, I had a 25% spread. So that was the goal, but I can do the calculations if you'd like and give you the exact percentage.
Well, based on your formula, you have to have a percentage to get from year 1 to year 2. Is that a uniform percentage, or did you divide your scale by your range and then just apply it individually?
It should be uniform, but I don't want to say that and be wrong. And then
So from year 1 to year 2 is 3% plus, which you already have built in, plus CPI and a range extension?
so the first year, the year one would be a 3% increase.
Plus the expansion of the
Plus the
steps
range.
and the range. And then year 1 to 2, is it only the 3%?
It'd be 3% plus
Plus CPI, plus an extra 5% to the range, which would then be diverted amongst the steps, but people still get a step movement based on their previous placement?
only based on the fact that they've been there for another year. Yes. Because how it's written up with the range expansion, it's not saying we're adding more range. It's just saying that step and then that step. It's not. We're not asking for more range or.
Well, it
or,
is
you know.
more range. If you're going from 25 to 30, you've added 5% to the table without steps, which means your steps get wider.
Just based on based on that and the 3% is what.
Plus CPI.
But I'm not saying that we're going to go like. I guess to clarify, I'm not saying that now we're allowing people to get increased 12 years. If they, from 10 to 12, it'll still stop at 10 as far as the year goes. But yes, it would be the 30%. And that's just to try to get closer to like general city employees with the 40%. Their 40% range is where that number came from.
It is. There is a difference, though, that you are a hierarchy-based organization, which means rank advancement is usually possible within 5 years of you taking a position. That does not exist on the city scale.
Right.
There isn't a senior level dispatcher.
I understand.
So that is why the city has a 40% scale, and hierarchy-based scales are usually not 40%.
Okay.
And we're just trying to get to 25.
The first year. But I mean, that's negotiable. That's over here. But this is the idea.
And are you asking for the first class to master patrol be compressed, or is that 2 different pay scales? And if it's 2 different pay scales, where's the break?
You're saying the first class and the master patrolman?
Yeah, is that 2 ranks or 1? I need to know for pay grades. If it's 2 separate pay grades, where do the steps split?
No, it's the same thing. It's kind of getting rid of the master.
So it's just compressing to 1 rank?
Yes.
Okay.
And that one too, because it's just the time, right? Okay.
How are you defining your midpoint?
Just a year 5.
So your midpoint is halfway between your minimum and maximum?
Yes.
I just noticed there's an asterisk there, so I figured it was defined somewhere. When does the placement on the scale occur?
I think it would be, the idea is to say if you're there, I think it would go in your anniversary, your work anniversary.
No, I mean, how do I initially place people on the scale?
So either where they are, so.
As in fiscal year 21?
Yes.
Okay.
And then if they are above, I mean, I wouldn't expect you to put somebody that's year 10 right now in the max spot right now. That's not the goal. Just close. So our hope would be it'd be year 4 at the 2773.
So everyone who, okay.
Or sorry, year 5.
Are we doing a years of service-based placement, or are we doing your current wage to the step closest that doesn't show
It would be the
decrease?
current. It would be the current steps wage closest
Without a decrease?
without a decrease. Yes, and then afterwards it would just go as the years continue. Then it would be your years of service afterwards.
What percentages are they based off on the previous rank? So what is corporal built off of from first class? And what are the percentages between ranks?
Do you want it just from the starting of the one, or do you want it from the top of which you could be?
Well, I need to know what corporal's built off of.
Between.
Come where are your pins? Thanks. No, but it might pop it that way. You can try to do the one that's not blacked out. See if it opens it over here.
Do you guys want to take a few minutes to
Sure, it's just like
figure
answer
that
your
out?
question, that'd be great. Because I might be able to track down the actual formula one. This is just a pretty one.
get a copy thing if you want. Sure. We'll take
We
a
got
short
time?
copy.
Yeah.
Good. And I'll come right back. 1 hour.
We'll be here. Welcome back.
And we're back?
We
Okay. So to clarify some of your questions, and I tried to remember them all. The first one was, I think I guess now on record to make clear that the steps in between was just the divided. That we did get that, it's 2.5 each for the 10 steps, it's just 2.5 between the steps in the actual position itself. The midpoint, there is an asterisk, and to get an actual mid was a year 5, year 6 divided by 2, so there's your midpoint. So I don't want to leave here without clarifying that. As far as the steps between ranks, it's the same as what we already have. The 15.37%, that is what it is between first class to corporal.
And what is that 15% built off of?
It's the exact same as the same thing that we already are on of the 20. Our current pay scale, the first class patrolman minimum is $25, and then it goes to 28.84. That 15.3%.
So you're taking 15 point whatever to step 1 of each rank and then applying it?
You asked for between first class to corporal. That's
Yeah, the 15% is built off of step 1?
I did it. Yes, I did it based on the current scale that we live on right now. That's how it came up to be. The current scale that we are operating on. That's what it is.
But your new scale is 15% between ranks based off of step 1 of the lower rank.
Yes.
From first
Okay.
class to corporal. Yeah. I think that answered.
And then the same percentage from corporal to sergeant, right?
Is the same as what we've lived on.
But again, it's off of step 1 of the rank
Right,
below.
yes.
Okay. So currently the scale is built off of step 5% of step 6 of the rank before it. So I just want
Yeah,
to,
because
there is a difference. I just wanted to make sure we're going with the 15 point something of step 1.
Yes.
Yeah, I was just trying to answer the exact question you gave me, and so I went and did it, the math to make sure, and then I made sure that it matched what was already in place. That's what I was trying to do. So
But the 15% isn't a city-defined number. That's how you chose to define it. I'm just making a distinction, and there is a difference in the chart calculations.
okay,
Well, it makes a difference on the rounding for the math. So when I cost something out, I need to know if you were going for 15% or 15.33.
I was just trying to match your scale. I was trying to match our current pay scale. So if it's based off of the starting officer rank, how it was originally done, or not yours, the city's, how it was originally done, and that it is the same setup. Maybe I'm not answering your question properly, maybe I don't understand it, but I think we're just on the same.
To some extent, we're trying to understand what the justification is for going from
For us to
where we
get
are
there.
now to what your scales are. Within that context, that's where we're heading with that.
Okay.
It sounds like you used our scales as the basis for determining what yours are, but you had some rationale that you used in order to get from where we are now to where these scales are.
Okay, and I guess we explain that? So
Okay.
we are trying to expand the pay scale, right? To make it
Okay.
longer. That's there. The numbers are, we didn't touch the third class starting pay the first year. We did increase the second class officer by the 3% the first year. But as far as the difference from the proportion between each rank is the same as it is today.
But I'm trying to explain, it isn't.
Okay.
Because so a first class officer to a corporal currently is built up 5% of step 6. Your calculations look like they're
Okay,
15
I understand what you're saying.
But so I'm looking at 15.38 between first class.
No, I'm not saying 50.38 from the max to that one.
I know. You're saying from step 1 to step 1 is 15.38, which is different from corporal to sergeant. You have 15.38, 15.35. Are those the exact numbers I need to use to cost the scales?
Sorry.
No, it's a lot of different languages coming together.
It's not this isn't my job. My job is a canine handler. That's my job. I'm dipping into stuff that I'm trying to help.
And that's not
veterans
even
with.
in English.
So yeah, it isn't in English.
So then, just to reiterate, will you explain to me how people are placed on the scale for 22?
They would be in their. You said it more professional or more accurately, but they would be in their closest but not less step.
To where they are in fiscal year 21?
Yes.
So somebody that was just take us through an example of how that would work.
So I believe. Oh yeah, I have that. So we have, if I use a first class patrolman that has been here for teen years.
10 years? Yeah.
Teen years. I don't know. I try
Okay,
not to say that
that's
exact,
okay.
right?
Yeah.
So they're currently being paid $27.47, and so in this scale, they would land in year 4, which is $27.73. It's the
Okay.
closest to on year 1 in the first year.
So they would go from 27,
27.47 to 27.73,
okay,
which in the short term obviously is not very significant, but as you move forward, it would help us.
okay.
So the CPI applied in year 2, which is referenced as here, is that applied at the third class officer?
Yes.
So for that calculation, do I take 3% plus the CPI applied to year 1, or do I take year 2 amount and then apply CPI?
You would take so year 1 is at 20, after year 1, they would be at the 22.68 because we didn't touch it. And then the year 3 would be the 3% in CPI.
Year 2.
Or sorry, year 2 would be the 3% plus CPI. This chart shows just the 3% because we don't know what the CPI would be.
And based on your calculations, do you have a rough estimate on cost for this
I don't know.
proposal?
I don't. I'm more than willing to survey my fellow employee, calculate it if you like.
Unless we have any other new business or items we'd like to revisit, I think now would be a good time to schedule our next meeting.
Okay. Do you want to try for next week?
We have budget meetings all day, every day.
I'm
If
out
you-
of town the week of the 14th, so the week of the 21st.
That's the promotion week.
We might be able to squeeze it in that week somewhere.
I won't be here. I gotta concentrate.
And council chambers isn't available.
That week. We're looking at the week of July 6th.
What about the week of July 28th, June 28th?
I'll be out of town again.
Summer's fun time.
Guess we could meet next week for an hour in the morning.
Okay.
Fridays are currently rough because we're
I
doing
have
a
a
lot
feeling my brain's gonna be cooked by the 11th.
We have a lot of budget calculations that happen on
73
Fridays.
Can imagine.
That's when all that stuff they gave us as action items has to be calculated. What if we went for like,
You could do a promotion week, I'll be all right.
well, the problem is I don't have council chambers. That's the week of the 15th, or are you gone that week?
That's the week, fellas.
We could do the week of the 21st in the afternoon.
That'll be okay.
Depends how stressed I am.
What about Wednesday, the 23rd? From 1 to 4.
That'll work.
So Wednesday, the 23rd from 1 to 4 in council chambers.
Wednesday the 23rd. Got it.
It's gonna be a good meeting, it's my dad's birthday.
In Wamazao will be your caucus space. All right, well, thank you for meeting today. We will talk with you on the 23rd.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.